welcome to my show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you, Susie.
Me too. Okay, so for anybody watching that doesn't know, this is my beautiful mom, Jean.
Hello.
And I wanted to have you on my YouTube channel because it's going to be Mother's Day soon. And you are one of the best moms in the world. Not just saying that because you're my mom, but you've just shown me such a great example of how to be a strong woman. You're probably the bravest woman that I know.
Gosh.
I think that you've taught me how to stand up for myself and how to be a good person, and like all the things that I've been able to accomplish in my life are because of you and Dad. So yeah. So my first question.
Okay.
What or who helped you become so brave?
Well, I think life. Life is hard no matter who you are. And I think some of the hardships that I've experienced along the way have helped me to become stronger, better. I also have an incredible mother myself who gave me a lot of strength. And I have a wonderful brother and sisters who have also been, equally strong and supportive and, taught me when I'm screwing up and when I need to change and, how to be better at being a person. So I think family had a big part in that too. And I think my kids too taught me a lot,
Somebody that I wanted to ask you about, because when I think of brave, I think about your move to Virginia, is Grandpa Joe.
Oh yeah.
You always told me that story about how Grandpa Joe encouraged you to move to Virginia, and that you felt like for a long time nobody really told you that you could just do anything you wanted to do, and he did that. So I wanted to ask you about that story and like how he encouraged you.
Well, growing up, I never really had tremendous career aspirations. I never wanted to be a pilot or a doctor or a lawyer. Just, I wanted to be a mom, and it wasn't working out for me where I was living in Chicago. I, was not meeting the right people that I wanted to be with or that wanted to be with me, depending. And I had a job, and it was a silly job at the time, I think, but they did offer me a position here in Virginia. And it was the scariest thing I ever thought about. When I went away to college, I cried every day. I didn't want to go. I actually left college at one point and came home because I did not want to be away from my family. And it was, even though it was just an hour or two away, I was not okay doing that. So when I finally did end up going away, I went away and I lived with my sister, and that made it a lot easier to be away. But I came back as soon as I could and did my student teaching at home. And so when I got this job change, I called my parents, my mom and her husband, who Joe was my stepfather, and he was everything a father should or could be. He was an incredibly wonderful man. I said, I got to come talk to you. And I went home and said, I've been offered a job in Virginia, and I don't know if I should go because I've never been good at this kind of thing. I've never been good at being away from y'all. And Joe said, get on that pony and ride, Jean. And, I came up with every excuse as to why I shouldn't do it. What if I don't like it? What if I fail? What if I lose my job and I'm out in Virginia? And he came back and said, it's okay. You'll get another job. We'll come get you. Whatever. He just made it so easy for me to go and know that I was going to be okay to go. So I accredit him with me being able to be on my own, really independently. I did live in Chicago and on my own and that kind of thing, but never like this. This was the biggest thing I did for myself, and it was the best thing I did for myself. I became really, really strong. And able to handle things a lot on my own that I never thought I could.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you guys always gave me that same kind of security where I knew if I were to go somewhere, never like, we're going to bail you out of everything, but you're like, if you go somewhere and you can't get home, we'll get you home. Right. Where, you know that you're safe. And I think that's like really important for growth, is to be able to like take calculated, safe risks and know that you're not going to like end up homeless, or if you can't, make it somewhere or keep your job or whatever it is, that you always have a place to come home to. And I think that a lot of kids miss out on that.
Right.
and it doesn't really enable you to take risks or chances.
Right.
But
And I still feel like I played it safe a lot of the time, you know.
yeah, which is good too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Security, something I don't have. So you talked about Grandpa Joe, and then I wanted to ask you about, you know, losing your dad, your birth dad at 14 years old, and I wanted to ask you how that shaped your life. Here's the cries.
It was really hard. It was a terrible disease. You know, I think if I ever had $1 million, that's where I would give my money, is to pancreatic cancer research, because I feel it's such a terrible disease, and they've made a lot of progress, but you know, it's still a death sentence for the majority of the people. But it absolutely affected me. I didn't think it was possible. I know when we first heard that my mom had to tell us some news and she needed everybody at home, you know, I said to my sister Susan, what if Dad's dying? And she said, oh, that only happens in the movies. It's not going to happen to us. And it happens, you know, but that was like, it was really a big realization for me that, you know, life is not like it is on TV. Life is real, and life is sad and hard, and you know, it was terrible. It was a terrible death for him, and it was hard on everybody to watch him go through that, and watch my mom have to, you know, care for him. And
Do you feel like that's how you learned to be like an advocate and a caregiver for when Dad got sick, or just even caring for us as kids?
I didn't do caregiving for my father. You know, I think I was too young and immature to be able to do that. Sorry, we may have to cut this.
That's okay. No, I'm emotional too. Here comes Bella.
I did witness, you know, my mom and her incredible care for my father, and my brother who did incredible things for my father, and my sisters also. You know, they were older, and you know, they did an incredible job showing how you care for someone. So I think when Dad got sick at various times, you know, throughout our life, I was like, okay, I've seen this, I know what to do. And you know, I was better able to handle some things. So
I think that you've always like taught me how to be an advocate for myself, and you advocating for Dad or yourself, like that was one thing that you always taught me growing up, was like, you have to advocate for yourself, you have to ask questions, and like you can't be afraid to stand up for yourself or whatever it is. And this one, I might cut this out too, but this was something that I thought was interesting from my childhood, where you showed not only teaching me to stand up for myself and do what was right and what I like, standing in my moral compass, but also mother's intuition. When I was in elementary school, there was a creepy teacher at our school, and you knew it, and there'd been complaints about him, and you worked in our school system, and you always told me that I was not allowed to be alone with this man. Tommy, my brother, was not allowed to be alone with this man. You were adamant, and like he was just somebody that worked in our school system, and you were not, like you were just adamant that we were not allowed to be around him. And my first grade teacher was one of my favorite teachers. I loved her.
She was so wonderful.
Yeah, and every night there would be a hotline that I would call in for extra credit homework, and they would tell you like something you had to do. So I called in one day, and my extra credit homework was to come into class the next day and give my teacher a hug. And I'm like, great, I love my teacher, easy 10 points on my homework or whatever. And I walk into class, and it's Mr. DC as my substitute teacher. And I knew I wasn't allowed to be near him. And everybody went up to him and gave him a hug, and he was, you know, picking kids up, friendly with everybody, but I refused to give him a hug, and he made it such a big deal in front of the whole class. I remember being like so embarrassed, like about to cry, but I was like, I'm not allowed to get near you. And it was like a boundary as a little kid that I learned, where I was like, even if I'm gonna like get in trouble or get embarrassed by my teacher because I won't give him a hug. I know, it's like,
I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry, because like 10 years later we found out he went to prison for like being a predator.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things, obviously at the moment, it's like a hug wouldn't have hurt, giving him a hug in front of my class, but like it was a boundary that you had set for me as a kid, and you were like, he is not a safe person, you can't go near him. And he was working in our school system like a literal predator. So But it was something, even 10 years later, I was like, oh my God, like my mom knew back then that this man was not safe. And she set a boundary, and she was like, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, you know, you learn your boundaries and you set your boundaries and teach your kids that it's okay if it's embarrassing. It's okay if you get in trouble. Like, you never taught me that I had to be polite. Yes, I had to be polite, but not at the expense of my safety or feeling uncomfortable. We've found through getting to know people in our lives and outside of our lives that like so many kids don't have a parent looking out for them. Like, what would you tell parents who are raising kids in today's day and age, like how to protect them and how to empower them to set those boundaries?
It's a tough one, you know, because we have to do it without scaring our children, but we also have to scare our children to know that not everybody is as good as what's in your home here. And you guys have even told me, Mom, you did too much. You know, you told us too much. And I probably did, but I did the best. I did what I thought I had to do. And if it was too much, okay, it was too much. But I still feel like I had to do it. I had to tell you the truth. And, you know, it's tough. I don't envy parents who have to do it alone or do it split up or whatever. It's hard. Life is hard, and that just makes it even more difficult. But tell your children the truth. You know, tell them to be careful and to trust their body. That, you know, we're animals. Our body tells us things, and we have to listen to the hair on the back of our neck. We have to listen to that feeling in our stomach that says, I'm not comfortable here. We have to listen to that. And if you get embarrassed, oh well, laugh at yourself, because, you know, if everybody's going to laugh, might as well join them and laugh and have a good time with it.
Yeah.
You know, but you got to listen to yourself, and
And that's one of the best lessons
it's okay. It's okay not to be with the in crowd or whatever. You know.
What do you think the most important lesson you taught me as a kid was, or what was your value system that you were like, this is what I want my kids to learn from their childhood?
I think I wanted you guys to know that you're enough. No matter what you are, you're enough, and you have great value. You know, whether you're a good student, whether you're a bad student, whether you're beautiful, whether you're, you know, have acne, you still have incredible value, and never forget that. Don't throw yourself away, you know, for anything, because you have great value. And be a good person. You know, have morals and virtues and things like that that will make you a good person.
I think those are probably like my two biggest lessons from my childhood when I look back, is that I always knew I was enough, and I was never afraid or thought that I was not good enough, or, you know, like I knew I had a ton of downfalls, and I knew I had a lot of things that I wasn't good at, but I also was like always encouraged to pursue the things that I was good at or that I loved or enjoyed. And then, I think you guys always taught me to have good morals, but you kind of mentioning, like, you know, you have value outside of your appearance and stuff like that. That was something I remember. I don't even think you remember this story. I've told you it, but you're like, I never remembered that story. But when I was a little kid, again, I remember this man said something in front of you, in front of me, and he said, oh, your daughter's lucky because she's so pretty that someday she'll be able to marry a rich man who'll take care of her. And you said something along the lines of like, if you think my daughter's best attribute is the way she looks, then you obviously do not know my daughter.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I remember being like, damn, mama. Like, I was like 12 or 13.
She doesn't need a man or anybody to come and take care of her. She's going to be able to take care of herself.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, like, it just, that to me was one of those things where I'm like, he probably didn't mean anything harmful by it, and it wasn't anything particularly like rude. It's definitely like a old school mentality of like
from my generation that would have been like, oh, at least she's good looking. She's not smart, but she's good looking, so she'll be okay, you know?
And I remember hearing you say that to him, and I was like, I remember thinking, my mom's got some high expectations for me. Like, I'm gonna have to get it together, because I remember thinking, just like, I didn't think anything of what he said. It just came out, and I was like, that was nice. And then you just came back with that whammy, and I was like, well, I guess I got to get to work. I just remember that it was an empowering moment. Like, it's funny now when I look back on it, because you could have just been like, yeah, she's beautiful, and
well, see, people
on.
said that to me all throughout your life, you know?
Yeah.
Is that, oh, you're never going to have to worry about her. She's so beautiful. Somebody will marry her and take care of her. And it's like, that is such an old way of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, I wasn't insulted, but it's
Yeah.
like, she has other value besides her face. That was a gift. There's this incredible person under
this?
yeah, underneath all that. You take the face away, there's still this incredibly wonderful, smart, intelligent person who has so much to offer.
Yeah. But instead of letting me just hear that and be like, yeah, she, oh yeah, you were like, no, there's so much more to her. And I think that's super important as a parent to reiterate to your parents or to your children, that their value doesn't lie in whatever they look like, because all that fades anyways. And
or how smart you are,
yeah.
or how strong you are, how heavy you are. I mean, those are all things that are part of who we are, but they're not the whole.
So do you think that the language parents use around their children is important even from the time they're little kids?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not something that you go, okay, you're 10 now, you got, know that you're great. You got to tell them from the time they're little.
Yeah.
You can do this, you can do a good job, you're a good person, you're not a bad boy, you're not a bad kid.
Yeah. Love that. What do you think the biggest curveball of motherhood was?
That's a tough one. I think I felt like I wanted you guys to pick up where I was like, okay, I'm showing you all of the mistakes I made, who I was, now come on, get up here and go. And in some ways you did do those things. You did take the lessons that I taught you and build on to them. But also you had to go through a lot of them yourself, and it wasn't enough for me to just say, I did this and this is what happened, so don't you do it, start here and go. You had to go through this, and you had to do this, and you had to experience it and feel it. And that was hard, because it was like, I told you not to do that. I told you you shouldn't do it that way. But you still had to do it that way to learn yourself. That was hard.
Yeah. I think everybody, it's like something you learn in life where you're like, yeah, everybody just has to like learn lessons on their own. But then I also think about a lot of the things you taught me about dating, and I feel like you always give the best advice. And just, yeah, I just think you have that like intuition. Like one of the things that always has stuck with me, and I just think it's a really important one that a lot of girls don't hear, but I run into it all the time with girls, and it's so unfortunate, but like people that date men who are not single. And not that that's like a normal thing, but you hear about it all the time. And like in my adult life, I've heard of so many women who say, oh, he's gonna like leave his wife for me, or they're in the process or whatever, but it's complicated. And like that was one thing that you were just like, I've seen this movie before. And not that that ever happened to me, but you know, like that was something you taught me where you were like, that's like, never fall for that line, like there were so many things that you just taught me as a kid about like even dating, where I think I just had such high standards that I was like, and still do, it's hard to find somebody.
That's okay, he's out there.
Yeah, but you just had so much great insight that's like, I feel like I didn't fall for all the tricks in the book off the bat.
That's good.
Some of them, but you technically have 3 children because you raised Tommy and I, and then when I was out of the house, y'all decided to get crazy and adopt another child. Will you talk about Barbara and your relationship with her and how parenting her was different than parenting us?
Okay. Well, I met Barbara when she was 4. Fell in love with her. She was a cute little doll baby, losing her front teeth, and that was I met her one time, and that's the only time I met her. But I knew that her family was struggling. And, I think if you know anybody who struggles with drugs, alcohol, it's a roller coaster. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. And, I volunteered at the time. I said I would be happy to take her, while y'all get your act together. But they, were not comfortable with that. And I know that would have to be terribly difficult to agree to do that. But Barbara came to us at a time when she was in desperate straits, I remember looking on the internet at her page, Facebook page, and I saw a big hole in the wall. And I said, Barbara, what is that? What is that from? And she said, I punched a hole in the wall. And I said, why'd you do that? And she goes, well, I'm about to lose my home and I don't know where I'm going to go. And I said, Barbara, you can come here. You are always welcome here. My door is always open. You can live with us, and you don't have to worry. And she says, well, my pastor has agreed to take me in. And that sent up, a red flag. Who's your pastor? You know, pastor's not taking you. You know, you're going to come stay with us.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was a wonderful man who did, you know, an incredible job caring for Barbara for about a year. But then he couldn't do it anymore because it's really hard to care for another child. And he had his family, and he had, you know, a taxing job as a pastor. You know, you're doing a lot of giving as it is. So Barbara ended up going into foster care. And you know, the whole time we were fighting to get her, we took foster parenting classes. We, you know, were in communication with social services regularly, trying to get her. And her father signed over custody to us, but her mother wouldn't. And she still had struggles of her own that she couldn't deal with. And poor Barbara was suffering because of it. You know, she was in dangerous places. And finally one day I, you know, through all my research, I found a guardian ad litem who said, I knew nothing about you, but I'm going to help you get Barbara. And, you know, she would take Barbara to lunch, she would take Barbara and buy her clothing, and try to help advocate for her as best as she could. But for some reason, she didn't know anything about us after 2 years of us fighting to get her. And she just sent the ball rolling and got Barbie here. And that was hard. You know, I thought, oh, I'm getting another little Susie, another little girl, you know. But she wasn't Susie. You know, she was very, very different. She was very independent. You know, she didn't want to go to school. She wanted to get a job and work at McDonald's.
And she was 11.
And she was 11. She goes, I don't need school. I'm going to get a job. I'll get a meal there once a day, and then I'll have a little spending money to buy other things. And I said, Barb, you know, right now your job is to go to school and to learn. And one day you will get a job at McDonald's, I promise you. But for right now, you're going to go to class. And she'd say, well, what are you going to do all day? And I'd be like, whatever I want, you know. She goes, well, what if you get hurt? And I'd be like, well, then, you know, I'll call for help.
What if you get hurt?
Yeah, well,
she sounds like me.
She was very much the parent in her relationships. So she cared for, you know, her mom a lot. And, you know, she was expecting to have to do the same with me. And I had to really force her to change her role as like, you're not a parent anymore. You don't make the decisions. You don't carry the worry. You know, your job is to go to school, have fun, and learn and grow. And it was hard. You know, not necessarily harder than you or Tommy. I think everybody's hard. Every kid is hard to raise, you know, based on who they are. But she's turned out incredible. I'm so, so proud of her and so happy for her.
Yeah,
you know,
she's awesome.
She's wonderful. You know, yeah. She's doing great.
Yeah, freaking nurse.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Barbara's now moved out, but now you have grandkids.
Yeah.
How is having grandkids?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's so wonderful. I love them so much, and I miss them. You know, like I'll hear them on the phone. I'll be like, oh, I gotta go see them, and you know, spend an hour with them. It's like, okay, I gotta go now. You know, because that's the good thing is that I get to go.
Yeah.
But they're incredible. You know, when I first held Tommy, I said, nobody ever loved me like this. No one loved me, and then I had you, and I was like, no. No one ever loved me the way I love you. But now I have grandchildren, and it's like, oh, this love is so incredible.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's not better, but it's so incredible. You know.
You can say it's better. I get it. They're great. I know you're being politically correct right now by not telling me you love the grandchildren more than me.
No, I don't.
I'm just kidding.
It's incredible, though. It's, you know, the love is great.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Just being an aunt, I remember my old boyfriend had a nephew that he loved so much, and I loved him too. It was great, and I was like, oh, he's so cute. But then when you have your own nephew and niece, you're like, oh, I get it now. There's like a magic about having your sibling have their own kid or something. It's different kind of love. We're going back, and then we're coming to an end here in a few. But what was your dream as a kid for yourself?
Okay. As a kid, I wanted to be a mom. That's all I ever wanted to be. I never had aspirations to be anything other than a mom, except for a short period of time in high school. I wanted to be a comedic actress. I loved my theater class. I loved making people, you know, that feeling you got when you got up on stage and, you know, the audience laughed at what you said. It was like, oh, that's the best high there is, you know? And I wanted to go to Saturday Night Live, and, you know, those were all wonderful things that I thought about doing. never took place.
You missed your calling though, because
I
when
did.
we took my mom and I took an improv class in New York
was fun.
City, and I thought she was going to get us kicked out because she was so funny. But it was an improv for business class, so it was like teaching business people and like people that wanted to have public speaking. It was like improv. So there's improv games, and then like my mom would walk out on the floor and it's raining penises.
Did I say that?
No, I don't know what. Something crazy though. Like every time someone would say like, "Oh, here, hold this," and you'd be like,
You're just, totally inappropriate.
yeah, like obviously, like I had to get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's amazing. But you definitely missed your calling on that, because you had everybody in the class just dying laughing the whole time. And I was like, I can't even compete with my own mom. I was like, she's stealing the show.
Yeah.
It was very funny.
But I really, really only ever wanted to be a mom. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really encouraged to do anything other than that. You know, like it was a different time. You know, nothing against the people that raised me, but it was, you know, that's what they were. That's what they thought was going to continue. And they, you know, then when the time came for me to be a mom, I was like, well, I'm not marrying you. I'm not marrying you. You know, and you know, I had to pursue other things that were really not terribly interesting, and so I eventually became a mom, but probably 10 years later than I wanted to in life, but it worked out. I'm glad with I like my kids, so.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Glad you waited.
Yeah, me too.
What was your dream for Tommy and I when we were kids?
I wanted you to be successful. You know, I wanted you to do well in life and, you know, be successful adults and live a couple doors down and have kids, and you know, that would have been wonderful.
Did we turn out how you expected?
No. No, absolutely not. You did your own thing. Yeah, I can say that for sure. Like, Barbara has followed the conventional path that I thought my kids would have followed. You know, where you grow up, you go to school, you go to college, you get your education, you do that career. And Barbara's not done yet. I don't know what she's going to do. She's 21, you know, so she's still really young and she could do a lot of different things. But you guys are so much braver than me. You know, you've chosen paths that are dangerous and exciting, and I never had, you know, the courage to do those things. I felt like I really had to follow the path, you know, and stay on the sidewalk and do what I know. And you and Tommy have both reached out in, you know, opposite different directions.
A lot of the things that you guys encouraged me to do or told me I could do didn't work out, but something else came in turn that was either equally good or differently good. Like going to Miss Teen USA, I wanted to go to film school, but instead I went to Lindenwood. And because I was at Lindenwood, I met all these kids from around the world, because it was a high international population, and that sparked my interest for travel. And then I got a job in Japan, and like every time I would try to go for something that is this big dream. It's like that silly quote that's like, shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars, kind of a thing. Same thing with everything I've done in my life. A lot of what I dreamt of or thought I could do didn't work out, but something good or something better or differently good came in turn. And a lot of times in the moment you don't see it, but you always taught me, like, one door closes, another one opens. And you also always taught me about, like, your mentality, and that so much about life is how you choose to see things. And so whenever a door would shut, I would be like, okay, well, something's gonna open up. Here's a bunch of other doors. Let me try to walk through those. Okay, my last question for you.
Okay.
It's real easy, basic. Now, so you had your dreams for us as kids. What is your dream for yourself and all of us and our future moving forward?
I want you guys to be happy. That's all I want. Just be happy. You know, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you are the garbage man, or if you're a doctor, or if you're an actress, or you know, a producer or realtor, whatever. I don't care what you do. Just be happy. Enjoy the ride. You know, because every day is a privilege. You know, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, so enjoy it.
That's good advice.
Be happy. That's all I want for you, is to be happy. And if I can do anything to help you, let me know.
You could just Venmo me like a couple hundred. That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll just set up a trust fund for you.
Yeah, just go ahead and set up a trust fund with $1 million. That would be. I'll be fine.
Yeah. There you go.
I love you, Mama.
I love you,
Thanks
honey.
for joining my show.
Oh, thank you for having me, honey. I'm so proud of you. Such a star.
You're a star.
Thank you.